One of the many joys of using social media for Louisiana fishing blog has been the countless useful comments posted all the time by anonymous people on the internet. Okay, so I'm being sarcastic, but there was also this one. And then it was asked again, and again, and again, and you get it. It's a fair question. I'm sure the advanced utility of a cutting-edge trolling motor like Minn Kota's Ultrex isn't lost on savvy anglers, whether they're inshore fishing or not. It's a question I've received so much, and because I especially hate repeating myself, it's become clear that the best way to answer this is with a thoughtful blog detailing my experience using the Minn Kota Ultrex in saltwater. In order to do this, we must first explore some pointed questions. Why do I use a Minn Kota Ultrex in saltwater in the first place? And that's where we begin. Why even use a trolling motor such as this one in the first place when Minn Kota makes models specifically for saltwater use? I use the Minn Kota Ultrex for saltwater fishing primarily because it's just an awesome friggin' trolling motor. It sports the time-tested effectiveness of hands-free control over the boat, the speed and precision of cable steering, and, above all, the ability to spot lock and function remotely through the accompanying wireless remote. It is the one trolling motor that truly does it all. But for whatever reason that is beyond me, the trolling motor overlords have not seen fit to bless inshore peasantry like ourselves with the saltwater variant. Yes, the Ultrex was made primarily with bass anglers in mind. It's my wild guess that Minn Kota figured we inshore anglers are unsophisticated troglodytes happy with dead bait, spinning tackle, and never looking at a graph or the obvious things that are underwater. If they really do feel this way, then you can't blame them for doing so after reading comments from saltwater anglers on my inshore fishing videos. Of course, if you know me and my brand at all, then you know I use a bass boat and a good deal of bass tackle for saltwater fishing. And look, those guys that made those comments, they just don't know, and that's okay. Clearly their forte is not bass fishing, which lends to my point. The advantage of a cable-steered foot pedal trolling motor with spot lock is one that goes overlooked by most people sporting a Salt Life sticker, especially for jigging speckled trout, which is one of my favorite things to do. Look, I fished everywhere from Slidell to Venice to Vermilion Bay with my Minn Kota Ultrex, and it's done amazingly well catching speckled trout, redfish, tripletail, and other various inshore species. But this doesn't change the fact that it's a trolling motor designed for freshwater. It's safe to assume that this expensive piece of equipment will be corroded apart by the rigors of a saltwater environment. This is a real concern, which leads us to my next point. Louisiana is not that salty. The coast of Louisiana is not as salty as you go to think. For sure, over the decades, its salinity has gone up and down across the board, with the last 10 years or so being one of the wettest cycles we've ever seen with back-to-back Bonnie Carey spillway openings to prove it. That and the death of our vast marsh, combined with the influence of the mighty Mississippi, makes for a coast that is much lower in salinity. This actually isn't bad for inshore fishing, as speckled trout redfish do fine in lower salinity or even straight freshwater. So how salty is Louisiana's coast? It depends on which specific area you're looking at, but anywhere further inland like Westwego, Manchac, Dularge, tends to have a lower salinity, even as low as 0 parts per thousand. And as you progress closer to the Gulf of Mexico, you'll see a gradual increase in saltiness, which is ocean water with a average strength of like 35 parts per thousand. HydroCoast maps do a good job of showing this gradient in salinity. So not all of my inshore fishing trips are to places that have a lot of salt water, if any at all, and that has more or less been a saving grace fishing my Minn Kota Ultrex for speckled trout or redfish. I think that if I were fishing this trolling motor in straight ocean water the entire time, that it would have kicked the bucket a long time ago. However, low salinity is still enough salt to corrode and rust a pricey freshwater trolling motor, and my Ultrex has seen service in very salty places like Chandelier Sound and Grand Isle. So this begs the following question. How has the Minn Kota Ultrex held up under saltwater use? Well, it's actually done pretty good. It's been in service for about 5 years now, and just shows some corrosion on the lower unit. The control board looks good, and the only failures I've had with it were related to a manufacturer's defect, which was some kind of sensor in the foot pedal, but it was easily fixed. It cost less than $100. I'll admit that I really dropped the ball on documenting how much rust and corrosion this Minn Kota Ultrex saw. It really wasn't that much, mostly cosmetic stuff on the lower unit. This picture was taken after a fishing trip the day after I had ground away the corrosion on the aluminum end caps and some of the rust on the main body. Hey man, the fish were biting and it was time to go. But why am I cleaning up the Ultrex myself? Well, that's because of a little something about its warranty. The important thing you should know about the Minn Kota Ultrex warranty. Warranties are awesome. They're a promise from the manufacturer to the end user that everything will be all right, even if it goes wrong. A good warranty makes us feel warm and fuzzy, but Minn Kota makes it painfully clear what will happen to the Ultrex's warranty should the trolling motor ever see a single tiny drop of salt water. This limited warranty does not apply to products that have been used in saltwater or brackish water, commercially or for rental purposes. And that's pretty much it. If you purchase expensive things with a warranty in mind, and why would you not, then this is clearly a deal breaker for ever fishing Louisiana's coast with a Minn Kota Ultrex, which is somewhat underhanded on Minn Kota's part because surely they know that Bassmaster, which is the standard for everything bass angling, regularly visits inshore estuaries like Chesapeake Bay in Maryland and St. Johns River in Florida. Those guys inevitably run across some kind of salt or brackish water. And I tell you, I've been to both locations, and the same places they're fishing for bass are the same locations you see blue crabs being harvested. That and Bassmaster used to visit Louisiana all the time, but unfortunately they no longer do because of our completely screwed up water access laws. Anyway, getting back to the trolling motor. The warranty really doesn't matter if you are a person who is savvy with tools, confident troubleshooting mechanical/electrical issues, and can take the initiative and problem solve without needing your hand held. I'm telling you this because the ability to take the initiative and troubleshoot a problem is a massive step in self-improvement that, in my opinion, is more valuable than any warranty. That and those are skills you are going to want to have if you own a boat and fish the hell out of it. Remember that old acronym, BOAT. It means break out another 1,000. So if you are not mechanically inclined and don't care to be, then I suggest looking at investing in a saltwater model trolling motor with a better warranty that suits your needs. But if you are mechanically inclined, then I suggest occasionally checking the control board and the foot pedal and disassembling the lower unit for inspection. You know what to look for: nasty green corrosion, rubbing wires, loose connections, that kind of stuff. And water? Water leaking into the lower unit is painfully obvious because, it's water in the lower unit. Anyway, I'm not sure why I had to mention that. When you do inspect the lower unit, you will want these seal kits to button everything back up nicely. Below this video, you will find links that take you to Northland Marine, whom I have no relationship with. I've just ordered stuff for them over the years and they've been pretty reliable. Their parts diagram for the Minn Kota Ultrex is pretty useful, as you can imagine. This Ultrex rebuild video is good too. Now, I'm not familiar with this gentleman or his channel, but I did come across this video in my research. And you may find it useful in the event that you've never taken apart a trolling motor. I think that his trick for removing the seized bearing at, 10 minutes and 20 seconds was pretty neat. So definitely keeping that one in mind. Anyway, you'll find a link to the video below. How to protect your Minn Kota Ultrex against salt water. The following are good tips regardless if your trolling motor is made for fresh or salt water. It all begins with good preventative maintenance, right? The first thing that I do is inspect for crappy factory terminal connections and replace them with good heat shrink. You know the kind I'm talking about. Then I like to put Corrosion X on anything that can corrode, especially bearings and electrical connections. Just be sure to use the red can and not the green can for electronics. After that, I make a point to give the trolling motor a good freshwater rinse after each fishing trip, as well as regular inspections where I remove the prop and inspect the shaft for fishing line. I also run the trolling motor without the prop on to listen for any noise indicating something is horribly wrong in the lower unit or steering housing. And believe me, you'll know it when you hear it. It's also important to note that you should not directly shoot pressurized water onto or into your trolling motor if you're rinsing your boat at the car wash. And that's about as detailed advice I'm going to give because this just isn't that kind of guide. It's not a mechanical how-to article. That, and I'm just trying to mitigate comments asking for things I can't provide. I'm not a mechanic. I'm just a little dangerous with a screwdriver. Anyway, this video from Australia shows pretty cool modifications to adapt the Minn Kota Ultrex for saltwater fishing. It could be worth exploring if you have the tools and skills. Now, Will I continue to use the Minn Kota Ultrex for saltwater fishing? Yes, absolutely. If I stop, it's because Minn Kota finally made a saltwater Ultrex and it's adorning the bow of my boat. Or because I'm dead. One of the two. You get it. Anyway, it's also worth pointing out that I run a bass boat, which is literally just a whole other video. And bass boats have recessed trays that allow foot pedals to sit more even with the deck. Bay boats and skiffs don't have this. Fishing a cable-steered foot pedal trolling motor without this feature is uncomfortable and not very practical, especially if it's sliding around on the deck constantly. So for these reasons, I run an Ultrex in my bass boat. But it's worth noting that I do have a dinky aluminum boat made specifically for running redfish ponds, and that boat is equipped with an electronically steered foot pedal. Over to you. Overall, I'd say that the Ultrex has done well inshore fishing for speckled trout, redfish, and more. And if you're not sure, then just watch my fishing trips for proof. But enough about that. We already know what I think. What do you think? Do you run a Minn Kota Ultrex? Why? Or why not? And if so, how do you take care of it? Tell me in the comment section below. If you've enjoyed this video, then give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to learn more, then consider taking my course, Inshore Fishing 101. Tight lines, and thanks for watching.